Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Finding Ola. Finding Ola is an Egyptian comedy drama series that tells the story of its titular protagonist, Ola, a middle-aged woman who lives a seemingly happy life with her husband Hisham and their two children, daughter Nadia and son Salim. One day after a birthday party, Ola's life is turned upside down when Hisham tells her that he wants a divorce. Hisham tells her that he's not happy anymore and that Ola isn't the woman she used to be. Following this revelation, Ola goes on a spiritual journey to rediscover her identity and passions in life while juggling the responsibilities of being a single parent to her children and dealing with pressures from her family and society at the same time. I don't usually review TV series on my channel, but with how well received my review of Al Rawabi School for Girls was last year, I've been eager to watch another Arabic language program, and having finished watching this one, I'm happy to say that it was worth the wait. As usual, I'll start by talking about the characters. The protagonist, Ola, is sympathetic right from the start. She goes through a lot of trials throughout the series, as she has to find out how she's going to provide for her family without being able to rely on her husband's income, while doing so in a way that still feels fulfilling to her. The weight of her responsibilities is made heavier by the fact that she lives around people who judge her every move, saying what she should do and how she should act. This is something that everyone can relate to in some way, and because it takes place in a Middle Eastern context, it becomes even more meaningful. Her character transforms with each subsequent episode, first reeling from the divorce before composing herself and beginning to capitalize on a business idea, and even going out on dates with other men and becoming confident in her femininity again, in spite of others' attempts to repress her. It was great to see Ola find her way back to being the person she used to be, but this also comes at a cost. Her behavior eventually becomes a detriment to her family life as she starts to lose focus on them in favor of going out to party and doing as much as possible to hold on to her youth, which results in her children and other relatives becoming resentful. The variety of characters' reactions to Ola's existential journey always kept things interesting. They all have their own idea of what makes for a happy life, from being married to staying single and everything else in between, and seeing Ola search for a way to appeal to both herself and others around her made for great storytelling. Ola's ex-husband Hisham in particular was a standout character. I like that he wasn't portrayed as bitter or any other sort of negative emotion that could come with being divorced. Although he is unhappy, it has more to do with the marriage itself than it does about Ola, at least in how I saw it. The double standard that exists between him and Ola was the most intriguing dynamic about them. Hisham is able to go out on dates with a woman half his age and continue working his job as a psychiatrist, but is shocked at the idea of Ola dating or working at all. It was great to see this type of opposition take place. Even though Hisham is kind in general toward Ola, his reactions toward her own life choices make it evident that the marriage was never going to work out anyway, and it was satisfying to see Ola come to this realization more and more with each episode as she becomes her own woman again. I was also glad that he never really used their children against her. He wants to maintain as healthy of a relationship with Ola as possible and is happy to let Nadia and Salim stay with their mother without always abiding by their custody agreement. Hisham was very mature in his approach to the divorce, which helped me understand his perspective more. This might be a little off topic, but a Syrian friend of mine once told me that divorces in Arab cultures can get really nasty, especially if there are kids involved. So it was interesting to see a more level-headed exploration about how divorce can affect two people without having them being at each other's throats all the time. It seemed that Ola and Hashim's parents were more invested in the marriage than anyone else, especially Ola's mother Sahir. Her husband had passed away, and so she wants Ola to cherish what she has or had with Hashim, which makes sense given what happened to her own marriage, but she overcompensates by putting Hashim's happiness ahead of her own daughter's. A lot of blame is put on Ola for her marriage failing, both from Sahir and Hisham's mother Nazli, who believes that she was the source of his unhappiness. Although it's unfair for them to do so, it's understandable where their reactions are coming from, as Hashim's patriarchal status prevents them from being able to see the bigger picture. There are lots of other well-written adult characters too, which I won't spend too much time talking about, but Ola's friend Nesreen was a big highlight, serving as the beacon of freedom that Ola strives to emulate, while Montasser made for enjoyable comedic relief resulting from his keen sense of smell, which proves to be a helpful resource for Ola's business. The child characters were decent in comparison, mostly thanks to Nadia. She's one of the most affected by the divorce, as she tries to make sense of her new living situation. The bond that she shares with her friend Zaina helps her stay focused, only for it to become an issue later on as she accepts the divorce. She couldn't seem to catch a break, and this helped endear me to her character. Salim, by comparison, wasn't all that memorable. His performance was okay, and there is some detail given related to his ADHD diagnosis and interest in theater, but it never has any real impact on the story at hand. Most of the time, he's kind of just there to pass the time when a scene calls for it. As I mentioned earlier, Ola participates in a variety of activities in the series, from dating to partying to going on hikes and doing other excursions. This is what makes the series so enjoyable. Ola explores several areas outside of her comfort zone to rediscover who she is, and more importantly, who she wants to be. Not only are these activities fun to watch, but they all play an important role in shaping Ola's character. The most important example in this regard is Ola's beauty product business venture, in which she revisits an old hobby and proceeds to make a career out of it in a creative way. She calls her company Second Chance, which is a fitting title. Despite being 40 years old, she's empowered to leave her past behind and start things fresh, and this motivates other characters to consider their circumstances too. This theme of redemption is present throughout much of the story, and using the store as an anchor for this theme was an excellent idea. There's an uplifting tone that persists because of this theme. Even though there are dramatic events that occur, they usually don't last long enough to drag an episode down. Ola is often able to use her store as a safe haven to recuperate from certain events, though she eventually does have to start taking responsibility for them. While I like the tone of the series itself, I found that there were some jarring shifts in it at times that felt kind of weird. The kids might get into trouble somehow, or Ola will have an argument with someone, only for things to go back to normal a few minutes later. It just felt like some situations resolved themselves a little too quickly. Some characters also felt inconsistent in their portrayals, like how Sahir spends 5 episodes learning how Ola's divorce and Hisham's conservative views are negatively affecting her, and she becomes more supportive over time, only for her to throw it all away in the last episode and insist that Ola get back together with Hisham just for the sake of having a husband. It's possible that I'm missing some cultural context, but I couldn't stand how meddlesome she became. At least with Nasli, she never liked Ola from the beginning, yet she warms up toward her after a major event in episode 6 takes place, which does make sense when it happens. But with Sahir, she ignores everything Ola told her after the previous 5 episodes, which goes against the established theme of redemption. But like I said, the series isn't completely bogged down in drama. There's enough room for the audience to take a break and enjoy more lighthearted fare, especially when Ola goes on dates. These were by far the funniest parts of the series, particularly when she spends time with Yusuf, whose role I won't spoil, but he was fantastic for the short amount of time he was around. Sometimes scenes are so ridiculous that Ola will break the fourth wall and look directly at the camera and make bewildered facial gestures, as if to say, "Can you believe this guy?" These were always hilarious, often including some dialogue that contradicts what Ola says to the character she's talking to in the moment, which makes them even funnier. Something else I noticed was how prevalent social media was in it, and how characters' lives revolve around and are affected by it. Hisham changes his marital status to single, which results in a bunch of women celebrating, and then he gets found out as the boyfriend of an influencer named Omnia, which causes things to spiral even further. On one hand, it's a bit strange how they tease Ola doing the same thing with her status, and when she does, no one really freaks out about it. But on the other hand, she realizes how she can use it as a tool to advertise her business and improve her life. Even though Omnia's youth does get to her at times, Ola realizes that her wisdom will help her come out on top, and it was fascinating to see how this played out. The link between Ola and Marwan was probably my favorite dramatic element of the series. Marwan has an arc that's almost as fleshed out as Ola's is, and it was awesome to see a male counterpart who was going through a similar crisis in life. The two complement each other well, and his efforts toward repairing his relationship with his daughter Zaina further reinforce the theme of redemption. I could go on further about my enjoyment of this series, but I'm going to wrap things up before I end up repeating myself. The only other nitpick I could think of that hampered my enjoyment of this series a little bit was the subtitles Netflix provided for it. There's a lot of times where characters will be talking, and spelling errors will be just scattered all over the place. Sometimes entire words were missing, so I had to rely on the characters' reactions on screen to get a sense of what they were saying. This is the second time I've had issues with Netflix subtitles this month, and it's disappointing to see so many errors in this one. Overall, Finding Ola is a fantastic dramedy that explores a woman's search for meaning and sense of self in a male-dominated world, and is told in both entertaining and dramatic fashion. If you like dramedies and you're looking for a series that has themes attached to a midlife crisis but isn't completely depressing to watch, I think this one would be right up your alley. Despite some character inconsistencies and jarring tonal shifts, Finding Ola remains an excellent series thanks to its protagonist, rich themes, and lighthearted presentation. I'm not sure if Netflix plans to make a second season yet, but if they do, I definitely look forward to watching it. What did you think about this series? Does it accurately portray the struggle of divorce in Egyptian society, or were there other parts about it that you took issue with? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Finding Ola. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part where next time I review the Spanish romance Through My Window. Bye bye!